Dan here, D&D Motors. Alright, I'm going to bring you an update here. The last couple of videos, what I was doing was prepping the frame, painting it, priming it. I put StoneGuard on it. It has a nice textured finish. It's easy to be repaired in case you get a big stone and hit you. You can repair it and it won't show. So, that being said, the heart right here, the motor, is where you start. The front half of the frame is bolted to the front of the motor. Just like a car, it has the motor mounts on the bottom, right where it should go if you're going to put it in a Chevy. They're solid mounts. So these are ready to go. I have them loosely put into place on both sides. The top part has a special hookup. What it's going to happen is this right here is going to go right here once it's all assembled. And I put little rubber pads in here to kind of reduce the vibration. So when I get to a point where once this is attached permanently, then I'll start adding the water pump, which you can get to right now. If you put everything else on, or you won't be able to get to it. I'm going to end up putting a radiator on, the water pump on. On the other side here, there's going to be a bracket with the alternator. You can do a lot of this with this front half. I can put the carburetor back on, hook up the radiator hoses, put the HEI cap back on with the plugs. So I've got the front half in place. I'm going to mount it here, permanent here in just a minute. And what I've done is started here. I'll eventually get it together and I'll put it over back on the hoist so I can marry the front half and the back half when I get to a point where I'm ready to put the transmission in. And this all started when the clutch went out, gone. So to repair that, you have to take the bike completely, cut it in half, cut it completely apart. Well, by the time you do all that, you've got to take a lot of things off to get to the where it's actually bolted together, top and bottom. Well, when you're at that point, I figured, why not restore this and make it like new? So that's what I've done. I'm gonna step over to the camera. I'm gonna scan around. I'm gonna give you a view of the back half of it. Then I'm gonna get busy and start bolting some of this stuff together. So bear with me. By the way, welcome back. If you like what you see, check like, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I'm gonna have a bunch of videos on this project, and the last one, we will be out in the driveway firing this up, taking it down the road. This is the first generation from 1990 to 2000. They were pretty much the same. They had some transmission updates from a 1-speed to a 2-speed, but basically what you're seeing here is the first generation. So let me show you the frame, the back half of the frame. It's ready to go when I get the transmission rebuilt and installed. Hang on just a minute. So I'm going to swing over. I'm going to show you the back half of the frame. That's it right there. It's painted, StoneGuard, ready to go. I installed brand new bushings where the rear fork is attached. So that's all set. Now all I got to do is wait for the parts to come in for the transmission. I'm going to swing back around here so you can see me start to install and complete the front part of the motor and the front half of the frame. These had lock nuts on it. I got some new ones for the top. I don't want this coming off. And even though they're lock nuts, I put a little bit of the blue Loctite on it. So it's just a thing that I do. I just want to make sure that this thing's not going to come apart on me going 70, 80 miles an hour down the highway. So that's my thing. You guys can do what you want, but I like a little insurance when I'm traveling down the road on one of these bad boys. Okay. Now, if you folks have any questions, please put it in the comments and I'll get to them. I promise you I'll answer every question that you bring in about restoring one of these. One of the questions that came up the other day was that where are you finding all your parts? Because I know that I've had a problem, so I know that you've had a problem trying to find parts for the first generation Boss Hoss. Well, I got tired of fumbling around and getting nowhere, so I should have called Boss Hoss Cycle in Tennessee from the get-go. And I talked to a lady there by the name of Linda, and she was very thorough with all of my questions. And so before I go running around looking for something that in the first place is hard to find, I call the factory first. Sometimes I get lucky and they have the part. Other times, you know, there's a Boss Hoss dealership, the closest one to me, and I live in Detroit, Michigan. The closest one to me that's an actual dealer is in Pennsylvania, and that's Boss Hoss Cycle, Mountain Boss Hoss Cycle I think it's called, and they have a very good reputation for their service and getting a hold of parts that are hard to find. So that's where I go, but I first start with the factory, the Boss Hoss. I call them directly and talk to Linda. That way I got somewhere to go, because you know that they've had these questions asked 1,000 times before. Well, where do I get this? Where do I get that? And there's not as many dealers out there as there once was, not here in the States. Back in the 90s, you know, everybody wanted to jump on the bandwagon, and there was a number of them, but now there are, especially on this side of the country, there's not very many of them. So the folks like myself that have a Boss Hoss, an older one, the parts are hard to find if you don't start with the factory. Now, a lot of these parts, like for an example, I had to get a new brake calipers pads for the rear, and to rebuild that, because they were the original pads. And so I did call in at Boss Hoss, and she told me that they were off, and I gave her the number off the caliper. They were off a Datsun, and she gave me the code number. I went right down to the parts store. I use O'Reilly's, and ordered them. And then the next afternoon I got brand new brake pads. I got them installed, ready to go. So that's kind of how it goes. If you can get a source, start with Linda and go from there. A lot of the parts I found at the local auto store as the pads for the brake caliper, because you know, you're talking about a motor in here that's actually a Chevy motor, a 355, and everything around, alternator etc. You know, bolts right up to a Chevy. The wiring harness, so on and so forth. So you can get all that stuff right down at your auto parts store. So, but again, start with the factory and go from there. These are just standard motor mounts you probably use putting in your 55 Chevy or something like that. They're just solid motor mounts. So all I'm doing is putting them on up snug and getting it ready to be there for the next 30 years, I'm hoping. I did bolt the master cylinder on yesterday because it was going to be out of my way, and it's just two bolts holding on the mat. This is the Boss Hoss master cylinder. You can buy them directly. This is not the original one. This is one that I bought. It's probably for a 2000, etc. But it works. It's it's a master cylinder. You could have used just about any master cylinder. But I chose to get the one from Boss Hoss and update my brakes. The other one was I didn't really feel confident with, so I went and got a new one. Alright, what did I do with that other? Is that one of them? No. Now some guys that probably would have jacked up the motor and kept it on the hoist and put that front part bolted on when it's over on the hoist. Well, when I took it apart, this is what it looked like on the last step. I had it on my engine stand. It was just easier. It was the right height where I wasn't bending over or reaching up, and so I chose to do it from the engine stand. And it's going to get to the point where I'm going to have to move it over to my hoist, but I'm not going to do that until I get ready to marry the back half and the front half together, and by that time I'll have the rear wheel and the fork on the back half, and then once I get it over there, I'm going to put one of those engine, I don't know, it bolts right where your carburetor goes, and lift it up with a cherry picker and have it hanging over the hoist itself, and then I'm going to take and put the fork on and the front wheel on, marry the two together so it'll be under its own weight. Right now, it's just easier for me to get this front part all married together while it's on the engine stand. And on the engine stand, or on the cherry picker, when you take this apart, you got to remember, you know, if you got the engine stand and the legs to your cherry picker, you got to set it up so you can get one over the other. And this has to come out to be 1.5 tons, or otherwise you're not going to be able to put the two together. They'll run into each other and you're going to have a problem getting the thing apart. And the reason I know that is because what I did. And now that I learned my lesson, I made sure that I put it on the 1.5 tons so I had enough arm to get the two together without clanging and unable to reach one or the other. Alright, let's see. One more time. Alright, that's that side. And there's a bolt on the bottom here that slides through the mounting holes on the bottom. And now, if I took this off, it wouldn't fall to the ground. It's on there. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to take and get these up where they belong and snug them up. I was lucky that a lot of the nuts and the bolts on this, one, they were stainless steel, so they didn't rust. All the threads are in good shape, so I mainly cleaned the heck out of them. And now we're using a lot